Islam,
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 Islamism.
Islam. Praise Allah. We want to welcome everyone to the Moorish Sense channel. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. Welcome to the Moorish Sense channel. The Moorish Sense channel is geared to provide more insight and more insights into life as it pertains to Moorish science by the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew in the Moorish Science Temple of America. We're going to begin our segment this evening, as we always do, with the Moorish American prayer. But before we do, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Brother Brendan Joyner Hill, Sheik of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Temple number 13, located in Baltimore, Maryland. And that's at 1055 North Milton Avenue. And to my right, as always,
I'm Brother Valance Bay, Sheik of the Moorish Science Temple of America, located at 1055 North Milton Avenue.
praise
Islam.
Allah, Islam. Islam,
Praise
Sheik. You want to start us off with the Moorish American prayer?
Praise Allah. Islam,
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 Islam.
Islam.
Allah, the Father of the universe,
Allah, the Father of the universe,
the Father of love,
the Father of love,
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my guide,
and my salvation,
and my salvation,
by night
by night
and by day,
and by day,
through his holy prophet,
through his holy prophet,
Drew Ali.
Drew Ali.
Amen.
Amen.
Islamism.
Islam, praise Allah.
Praise
Welcome to
Allah.
you again. First, I'd like to rise and raise my thoughts and give praises to Allah, the Father of the universe. He's the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I want to extend honors to our prophet, our beloved prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, who was born in the state of North Carolina, January 8, 1886. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali came to us, those of us who were under the auspices for the erroneous terms of Negro, Black, and Color, teaching us the truth about not only our race, which is Asiatic, but also our nationality, which is Moorish American, and the shade of our skin being olive. I want to also give honors to the Prophet's forerunner, Brother Marcus Mosiah Release Garvey. I also want to extend honors to our leaders, our Supreme Grand Sheikh Pray the Ill, Supreme Grand Sheikh is Pray the Ill. And I also want to extend honors to our national officials. I want to extend honors to our Grand Sheikhs, Grand Sheikh T. Jones Bay, and also all of the officials of 1055 North Milton Avenue, Temple number 13, and those across the Moorish Circuit. I want to give honors to those who are keeping the doors of the Moorish Science Temple of America open. And I also want to give honors to all past and present leaders of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And last but not least, I want to extend honors to my wife, as well as my children. And I'm going to pass it over to you, Sheik.
Praise Allah. Islamism. I
Islam.
like to raise my thoughts above the lust, the dust, the fuss, the merely carnal ideas of man, placing my thoughts closer to our Father, whom I choose to call Allah. I like to give honor to my beautiful wife and my 8 children, and all the wonderful works that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali has brought unto us. Man, we've been away, and you know when they say when the cat is away, the mice will play.
Right. That's a good
So
one.
it's been interesting, right? Just
Yeah.
to see, you know, just a lot of things that's going on. And this is our first show of, if you will, you know, some Moors like to continuously think Eurocentric. So if you want to go according to a Eurocentric way of thinking,
Right.
2026, you know, this is our first show, but we know and understand that we had a what you know, one of our customs is the Moorish New Year,
That's
right? Um, and we won't belabor the point or spend a lot of time on it, but it's interesting to see, to say the least, of Moors who were not necessarily practicing a Moorish New Year start to um, hold. I guess they're catching on, so to speak, which is a good thing.
Islam.
But also, you see those who are in opposition of it, which also is a good thing, because those particular individuals are telling on themselves because as much as they like to say all of the titles that they've earned or whatever, it's crazy that they still can't understand. I mean, what may be simple to you and I, a simple concept, but
Right.
you know, praise Allah. Both on both sides is interesting to see.
Yeah, it's pretty, I'm glad you brought that point up, man, because I mean, you watch people. I mean, I see them from time to time. I
Mhm.
know they're not really on social media like that anymore, but you
Yeah,
see
me
people
either.
who continue to perpetuate ancient hatreds and things of that nature, which is, to each his own. If that's what you choose to do, that's what you choose to do. But as we often have stated before in the past, since we've been up and running since 2017 on the Moorish Sense channel, we don't debate, we communicate.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
Absolutely.
if you have a question or inquiry in regards to anything you may see or hear on this channel, the email address is moresensemedia@gmail.com. And from there, we'll provide contact number, what may have you, and we can have a respectful dialogue and or conversation about anything you may see or hear or anything
Yeah.
you need clarity on. Yeah.
And the key word is respectful. We're not going to be
Argue.
hooping and hollering.
Don't do that
Yeah, we not. That's not what we doing.
at
You
all.
know. And also, it's interesting to see on that we have seen that some previous shows and some research that we have presented that um, we see other Moors, which is not a problem because
No problem.
the
Right.
information doesn't belong to us.
That's right.
However, to see them come back and redo things that we have discussed on one of our shows, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's also interesting to see, and also people presenting documents that they really don't have an understanding of, and we will do a show on one of these documents
That's right.
um, because it's some detailed history that goes to it.
That's right.
So yeah, it's just interesting to see. That's yeah, and praise Allah.
Praise Allah.
Yep,
So,
yep.
yeah, that's right. So, the topic this evening, the topic we decided to cover this evening is called the Black Lie. And, excuse me, that's the T. And the reason why we chose this topic is because what I'm finding, and I'm pretty sure you can attest to it as well, She, a lot of our people are still, for whatever reason, they still cling to this term black. They hold on to it with dear life. And for whatever reason, they don't really understand the effects and ramifications that not only the word black has, but also the connotation, the vibration, as well as uh, just the overall history of this word. And of course, one segment is not going to do this particular portion justice.
Hmm.
However, there are some things that I think that you and I we discussed since the last time we went live that we noticed that should be brought to the attention of those who may not know.
Hmm.
Uh, just to give a disclaimer, this specific segment is not to pounce on anyone. It's not to belittle anyone. At one point in time, I myself, and maybe you can attest to it as well, Shigor, maybe you can confirm to it. I didn't know my race and or nationality. It
Yeah,
wasn't
me
until I
either.
was introduced to the teachings of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali that it got me to think in a way that wasn't constructed through what we call European psychology.
Hmm.
And when I say European psychology, focusing on that concept that people call race. But before we get into that, Islam Sheikh Williams Bay, before we get into that, I want to draw our attention to the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And there's a specific chapter from the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Know yourself and your Father God Allah that you may learn to love instead of hate. Every man need to worship under his own vine and fig tree, the United of Asia. There's a chapter and a few verses that I want to draw our attention to, because one thing that I find that's prevalent amongst the Asiatics of America, and I'm going to just use, I guess I'm going to put it in parentheses, so to speak, those who identify as Black, African American, even Negro, which some people may say is antiquated or outdated, or even
Hmm.
colored to that degree, right? Our people often identify with the continent of Africa. But when you look at the continent of Africa, one thing you'll find and notice is that you're not going to find a Black land, you're not going to find a Negro land, you're
Hmm.
not even going to find an African American land. And then also, there's been a reoccurring wave of people who have, um, for whatever reason, personal, private, etc., they have grasped a deep affinity to the land of Egypt. Some
Hmm.
people call it Kemet, which is perfectly fine, because when you look at the Holy Quran, the Moorish Science Symbol of America, our Prophet Noble Ali, he gives us a specific lesson on Egypt being the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. And this
Hmm.
is what I want to draw everyone's attention to. So Sheik and I are off the screen real briefly. There's a few verses I want to read, and then I'm going to peruse to the second part of this, and then we're going to get into. I'm not going to peruse. I'm going to go through it, and then we're going to peruse through the information that you and I have compiled.
Hmm.
So this is the divine instructions from the Holy Prophet, and this is chapter 47. And the title of this chapter, for those who know, is called Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. It says the inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. Pay very close attention to that statement. It says the inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. I'm going to go down. It says, well, let's keep going. I'm going to go to 2. It says, Old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. His father Ham and his family was second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of Amexem, the first true and divine name of Africa, the dividing of the land between the Father and the Son, the dominion of Cush. Now remember, Cush was the first to inhabit Africa, and then his father, Ham, was the second. It says the dominion of Cush was northeast and southeast Africa, and northwest and southwest was his father's dominion of Africa. And verse 5 reads, in later years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa, they were the founders and the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire,
Hmm.
with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren, who sojourned from the land of Canaan, seeking new homes. Their dominion and habitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa across the great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands before the great before the great earthquake which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. Now, let's keep going down. Verse 9, I'm gonna skip 8 and go to 9. It says, according to all true and divine records of the human race, there is no Negro, Black, or colored race attached to the human family, because all inhabitants, and let me just go to the next one so everyone can see. Give me 1 second. Let's pull this one up so you can real briefly. It says, because, oh, my apologies, everyone. All right, there it is. Because all the inhabitants of Africa were and are of the human race descendants from the ancient Canaanite nation from the Holy Land of Canaan. What your ancient forefathers were, you are today without doubt or contradiction. There is no one who is able to change man from his descendant nature of his forefathers unless his power extends beyond the great universal creator Allah himself. Now let's go down to 19 or 16. It says, through sin and disobedience, every nation has suffered slavery due to the fact that they honor not the creed and principles of their forefathers. And in verse 17, the last verse of this chapter says, that is why the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them in 1774, and the word Negro, Black, and colored was given to the Asiatics of America, who were of Moorish descent, because they honored not the principles of their mother and father and strayed after the gods of Europe, of whom they knew nothing. Now, the reason why I read that part or that specific chapter in those verses is because we're going to focus on this term black. We're going to look at the word race. We're also going to look at a historical note as it pertains to race. We also are going to look at this word Moorish. And we also want to look at the word more, because the thing about it is, somewhere a long time ago, a while ago, before I even came to the temple, there was this documentary that some Asiatics were putting out, right? And the documentary was called Hidden Colors, right? And there was
Mm-hmm.
a brother that was on that documentary. He made an erroneous statement. At that time, I didn't know because I wasn't aware of what he was saying. But the brother tried to equate the word black to the word more, and that's absolutely not true. And we're going to um, delve into that, and we're going to deconstruct that, and we're also going to look at the fact that the word more does not come from the Greek word moris, but it has a deeper meaning and a deeper origin as well. All
Correct.
right. So I'm gonna pass it over to you, Sheik.
Yeah, and interestingly that you say that, right? Because in my 20, I guess 27 or 20 something odd years in the temple, and you being a historian, have you ever seen in any history books, footnoted or otherwise, that the word more spelled Muur?
Now, that's actually a new construct, and if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken, it was
And
created, but came about in the 20th century. Like,
okay, and also I somehow floated across a video or would be video, and it had like a gentleman. He was demonstrating, and there was like a sister and some other things, and I kept looking, and it would appear to be a real video. However, I do know that and looking at the fezzes in that video, Moorish Americans never wore the type of fezzes, and therefore, and the sisters didn't have buttons in their turbans and things of this nature, and therefore, I knew that that was a AI generated video.
right.
Um, and they some of the individuals or the individuals who created that video tried to make it seem like there's a beef between those who call themselves Moorish or Moor
Hmm.
and those who use Muur.
Right.
Um, there's no beef. We're just saying that there. I have never seen any records in my research in 27 years of the term Muur or seeing it. I've never seen it.
Right.
Um, so they started a they started some type of research bureau.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, if you look it up online,
I'm gonna
they,
check it
they
out.
started some type of research bureau.
Hmm.
And that just simply, when I started looking at some of the images and stuff like that, this goes back to when I first came into the temple, individuals who were trying to call themselves Azazian Moors,
Hmm.
then Washita, then um, various other um,
Innovation.
names and trying to separate you all the while trying to use Prophet Noble Drew Ali's teachings, but also separate themselves from the Moorish Science Temple, so to
Right.
speak. Which is I mean, that's wild to say in itself, but
Hmm.
you know, yeah, I just wanted to. I know you by nature. You're, I mean, when I say nature, by training and also by
Education.
love,
Right.
you
Right.
are a historian, and you're a fellow researcher just like myself. And
That's right.
in the event that I'm I'm in error of something, I check you. You're one of the first persons that I check with, to check in with to see, should I dig a little deeper? Am I missing something,
Right.
or what have you? And that's what scholars do,
That's
right?
what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, yeah. Praise Allah. So, I'm glad that you're bringing points out like that, because a lot of people will try to go in and say, oh, um, certain or the circle seven was drawn from a couple of different books,
when it wasn't.
when in all actuality they were not. Um, and it's all in the timeline, right?
That's right.
If you go back and you really look and you really know about the history of the Moorish Science Temple of America, um, you can see the plot thickens with all of the organizations that were trying to stop
Profit.
Timothy Drew, later became known as Prophet Noble Drew Ali, right?
That's right.
And even the police department and so to speak. So I some articles that I read that try to peg the prophet as Thomas,
Right.
and I question, well, was that an error, or was that you know what was that an error? Was that a misenunciation of Timothy? I just didn't. I still haven't come down to the conclusion of that, right? But yeah, interesting to see. So yeah, just to put that little bit of information out there.
Praise the Lord. All right. So the first thing I want to do, well, next because it's actually a continuum, right? And that's a great point you raised, Sheik. I've been watching, not watching, but I've been seeing a lot of the AI videos surface.
Uh-huh.
I'm not, even though it sounds a little hypocritical, because we have an AI thumbnail for this particular segment, and we have a couple of them on the channel, but I'm not really a fan of the AI videos.
Right.
For me personally, it takes away the authenticity of, and also it also puts the integrity of the organization, the profit, and really the overall message of the Moorish Science Temple of America and Moorish Americans. It puts us in limbo to a degree.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
I've seen the same video that you saw in
Uh,
regards to spelling, variation, MU,
okay.
and then I also seen the other one with Moorish. And then it was confusing, man, all in all. But, I digress off of that point, to each his own. I just, like I stated before, for me personally, it's just not my thing. I'll never support it, condone it, etc.
Mm,
But it works for some, I guess. But let's get down to the we're going to look at race. All right, if that's okay with
hmm
everyone, that's what we're going to look at. And I'm going to open up a document. I'm going to do a share screen briefly so people can see exactly what I have on my screen. Again, we're not coming. Can you see this sheet?
Oh, not yet.
Okay, praise a lot. I think I got to open it up with this one.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see.
hmm
See if it works.
That's a little small, but
It's a little small.
hmm
You see Britannica. All
yeah, I see Britannica. Yes.
right, praise a lot. So I'm just going to read, and if anyone needs the sources, why it's appearing small, but I mean, we work stuff. So I just maximize it to 110. The history of the idea of race this is coming from Encyclopedia Britannica. Interesting enough, it's coming from sociology and society. And when you're dealing with sociology, you're mindful that this is dealing with the effects or the conditions of the human mind, how an individual actually
hmm
perceives a specific thing, right?
hmm
Excuse me, that was the T again. So it says race as categorizing term referring to human beings was first used in the English language in the 16th century. I'm gonna read that again. So race as a categorizing term referring to human beings was first used in the English language in the 16th century. Until the 18th century, it had a generalized meaning similar to other classifying terms, meaning such as a type, a sort, or a kind.
hmm
So prior to the 16th century, which is the 1500s, you didn't find people categorizing themselves according to a person's appearance. That whole idea and this concept of race really didn't come into play until the 16th century. It
mm
says occasional literature Shakespeare's time referred to a race of saints or a race of bishops. And we also know that Shakespeare, he actually compiled a lot of playwrights in regards to Moorish people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It
Mm-hmm.
says by the 18th century, so now we're dealing with the 18th century, we're talking about the 1700s, race was widely used for sorting and ranking the peoples in the English colonies. Europeans who saw themselves as free people, indigenous Americans who had been conquered, and Africans who had been brought in and enslaved and as enslaved labor, this usage continues today. So we know and understand when we're looking at this whole idea and this concept of race, and if we're dealing with the black lie, we have to look at the origin as it pertains to the Western paradigm. In the
Mm-hmm.
Western paradigm, meaning the English language, what they call Anglo-Saxon, etc., these individuals aren't using the term prior to this white, etc., so-called black, etc. Those terms weren't being used. They weren't in. They weren't being. They weren't in. They weren't in. That it became used
Mm-hmm.
to categorize people and rank people and really create this racial caste system that we see today. I'm gonna go down just a little bit
Correct.
further. All right, She, you want to add anything? You want to say while I'm going down?
Yeah. So
Go.
so
Read
to
that.
to uh to further solidify what you're saying, all you got to do is go look at Walter Plecker. He was the first head of vital statistics, right?
Mhm.
Um, and this was the first vital statistics ever, and it started in Virginia, right? And he was a
Right.
part of a group called the Anglo Saxons Club, and then in later years he he went to the University of Maryland. He graduated from there, and in later years he became the head of vital statistics. And then he started um, just making all different types of laws. The one drop rule,
That's right.
uh, and it was some.
Paper
It
genocide as
actually,
well.
if you even, huh?
I was saying it, which led to paper genocide as well with
Mm-hmm.
certain Asiatic
And
families in Virginia.
yeah, and it was a part of a eugenics type movement, right?
That's right.
Which is connected to so many other things. Um, and he utilized um, uh, a system by a scientist from Germany called Johann Blumenbach. He utilized his system and implemented it in the vital statistics here in America,
That's right.
and that's just to further solidify. And then you can also look at the book The Negro Beast, right,
That's
by
right.
Charles Curl, which all of those things that we're mentioning, these are they go like hand in hand with one another, and what you're talking about the history of race and what individuals were doing in this part of the world to try to justify slavery, so to speak. Yeah.
Good
So,
work.
and we'll see later on with some other documents that how our ancestors never referred to themselves as being black, right?
That's right.
They
That's right.
never, yeah. And thanks to the documentation of 1730, which we presented in one of our shows, we saw that the word Moorish was replaced with Indian. And here comes Walter
That's right.
Plecker in later years and the things that he did with saying that a person who had a dark complexion or so-called black person could not be a part of in or could not be
Indeed.
considered Indian,
Right.
right?
Indiana.
Which is further removing us from finding out what our actual heritage is. Okay,
That's right.
yeah. So Moors don't only just
Right.
go to Africa and um 711 or 1490, 711 or 1492.
16,
That's
19.
not
Right.
just
None of that.
yeah,
It's a
that's not just
not
it.
us.
It's
Right.
more to it than
That's
than
right.
just that, right?
Right.
Yeah. So praise Allah. Just to,
Praise the Lord.
hopefully that provides the listening audience some context, right?
Excellent context. And just to read on for a brief second, it
Mm-hmm.
says the conquered and enslaved were physically different from Western and Northern Europeans. But such differences were not the were not the sole cause for the construction of racial categories. English had a long history of separating themselves from others and treating foreigners, such as the Irish, as alien others. By the 17th
Oh
century,
yeah.
their policies and practices in Ireland had led to the image of the Irish as quote unquote savages who were incapable of
Mm-hmm.
being civilized. Proposals to conquer the Irish to take over their lands and use them as forced labor failed largely because of Irish resistance, which actually is happening to this day. If anyone looks
Mm.
at some of the geopolitical issues, if you look at Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland, there's a split between the two. One is actually under the auspices of the British Crown, and the other doesn't want anything to do with the United Kingdom at all, or Great Britain to a
Mm-hmm.
lesser extent. It says it was then that many Englishmen turned to the idea of colonizing the so called New World. Their attitudes toward the Irish set precedents for how they were to treat the indigenous inhabitants of the New World and later Africans. So the prophet teaches us that every nation has suffered slavery due to the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they honor not the creed and principles of their forefathers. And
Correct.
specifically, the nationality of the Moors was taken away from them, and the words Negro, Black, and Colored was given to us. So that's one source right there. Sheik, do you want to go into the court cases?
Yeah, let's go into these court cases, right? Because interestingly, um, when you look at these court and specifically what I want to say is these are actually like head notes to court cases, right? And a head note, um, these are things that the recorder, right? Um, when they are listening to lawyers, when they're listening to judges, um, and things of this nature, the head note is they it's like a published summary, so to speak, right?
Right.
Um, and it's meant to describe a legal issue discussed in the case. Okay,
Okay.
so if you go back and you look at these cases, and people like to use AI, right? And
Mhm.
if you investigate these via artificial intelligence, you will discover, or artificial intelligence will tell you the 13th Amendment with two sections voided these court cases. But you and
True.
I and so many other people know that no, it didn't.
That's
You
right.
get what I'm saying? So the head note, one, right? This first head note, which is out of New York, 1826, right?
Right.
It was a head note, and it says that a Negro works for and is claimed by one as a slave is prima facie evidence. And when you say prima facie, it means first fact.
That's right.
That's what prima facie means. Evidence, first fact evidence that he and or she is a slave. And then it talks about Trongot versus Byers, 5 COW 480, right? Which is a further legal citation where you can go and look at that particular court case, what was going on, and simply the recorder summed up what came out of this particular case, so to speak.
So,
And according to my knowledge, there has not been any other court cases to overturn this. And we know when we say, or when it is said, the word Negro, simply it is a synonym for black. It's a synonym.
that's right.
Because a synonym is a word that is spelled differently but means the same thing.
Yeah, Negro means black in Spanish.
Okay. So when you say colored, when you say African American, when you say when you try to put
Yeah,
Asiatic in front of
yeah,
black,
right.
all that. Yeah, no.
You ain't going for that.
Yeah, it's, I mean, here legally, it's saying what what is how people are viewed, um, and people will say, "Oh, we passed. This doesn't mean anything. We're past that now." Okay.
Let me ask you a question, Street.
Uh-huh.
Is it safe to say the word Negro, not just in this context in the 1800s,
Uh-huh.
but prior to that, is the word Negro or black, is it synonymous with the word slave
For sure.
in this context?
In this particular context, and if we go back in ancient times, like um people didn't identify themselves utilizing, when you go back to the early Latin or Spanish speaking countries and things of this nature, people didn't identify people as being Negro, so to
That's
speak.
right. That's
Right. So um if people don't know that is a very modern concept in the Spanish language, that people started identifying people with that particular term in Spanish. That's very new. It doesn't, in ancient times, or before colonialism, they didn't identify people as such.
that's right.
Yeah, if to help provide some context, basically.
That makes sense.
Here's the second one, another court case from 1802, right? Negroes um, are presumed to be slaves until the contrary appears,
There it is.
but it is otherwise as to persons of mixed blood.
Hmm.
Gobu versus Gobu, 1 NC N.C, which is North Carolina,
Yeah,
188.
that's right.
So that court case, once again, this is a head note that summarizes what this court case was about, right?
It's not.
Essentially like what's that thing we used to have to write? Not the literature review. Um, it's the introduction to it, in grad school, to a paper.
Um,
Um, I forget the name of that
yeah, I
statement.
know. Yeah,
It's not a thesis. Is it
ah,
a thesis statement?
statement. Yeah, thesis
Okay,
statement.
thesis
That's
statement.
right. It's
So
a
that's
thesis.
essentially what a head note is.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
a
a thesis.
thesis
Oh,
statement,
yeah,
so to
that's
speak,
right.
right?
Steve. That's right.
Um, so we could see that, and we could see that in many different things. Legal in the legal system, so to speak. Now, not that there's anything wrong with the legal system,
Mm.
because we need a legal system, but um, we see that these court cases and these decisions that were decided still drives and fuels, potentially fuels what race is, and how court cases are decided, and what lawyers and attorneys and esquires decide to utilize, or if they decide to utilize these cases, and how they decide it now. Um, here's some another interesting one, and this I believe, well, not believe, but this is from North Carolina as well, 1828, which is one, two, three. Hold on, nope, it's another one. Excuse me.
1802. The other
18, did I go? Okay, yeah. The
18.
presumption, 1802, North Carolina again.
That's right.
The presumption from the black color of an individual is that he is a slave.
Right.
Okay. That's Goldberg versus Goldberg, 3 North Carolina 170.
So if they're making these presumptions, are they making it based off of what they see with these two eyes? Is it safe to say that?
Yeah, they're making it off of what they see with their two eyes, but also um there was some these recorders that were
Okay.
recording this information
Right.
heard further and deeper conversations where they summarize it as a head note. Um, so those who study and practice law will come back and they would see the head note and for the most part have a good synopsis of what that particular court case was about, and they could use it as case law, so
Case
to
law.
speak.
That's
Right.
right. That's right.
Um, and in some instances, it could turn into common law, but these are concepts that we definitely will have to, go um, a little further into. But those who are familiar with, civil procedures and things of that nature, um, and simply put, they utilize it to prove cases, to get, present evidence to the judge, so the judge can make a decision, so to speak.
Islam.
All right. So that was third. Fourth is another North Carolina case, 1828. In question of slavery or freedom, a presumption of slavery arises from a black complexion,
Hmm.
but none from that of a mulatto.
Wow.
Scott versus Williams, 12 12 NC 376. So now you get into these terms that were utilized that you'll see Walter Plecker, he utilizes mulatto, odd quadrant, octoroon,
That's
uh,
right.
and believe it or not, there were a whole lot more that still exist in slang today.
Right. And
Like,
people use them. Amongst our people, they still use
oh
those terms
yeah,
too. In
like
the
like
South,
one thing, oh, that girl, she fine, she a
the
red
red
bone.
bone. Right.
All
Not
right,
knowing what
that's not understanding that is a
offensive term.
that's a terminology, like, you know uh, reflecting that a person is of mixed ancestry, so to speak, right?
That's right.
Not That's not just slang. It come from somewhere.
Islam.
Then this last one, which is North Carolina, 1853, the presumption of slavery does not arise from a complexion a shade darker than that of a mulatto.
Hmm.
Nicholas versus Bell, 46 North Carolina 32. So in these head notes to describe, this is, what more proof do people really need?
That's right.
Yeah. And this is what Prophet Noble Drew Ali was really expressing to us, is that the names that we are calling ourselves, we're not trying to separate ourselves from people, but
Not at all.
or our people, it's just explaining, when you call yourself certain names, it's actually doing you a disservice, because they got us, not saying that our cousins from Africa, they're not important, but we don't come we all of us didn't come
They come
from,
from the continent.
yeah, that continent.
Right. Some
We
of us have already been here.
yeah, for 10,000 years before Columbus even came here.
That's right.
Yeah. And
Crazy.
then the many different voyages that came over here with different rulers. We had been here. We had traveled. We had traveled the Indian Ocean. We traveled the Pacific. Specifically the Atlantic Ocean. It 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 wasn't always an ocean, and we see that. I think when you read that chapter tonight,
$47.
we discovered that it wasn't always an ocean.
But you also have, and that, yes, the prophet brings to our awareness that it wasn't always an ocean, right? But
Correct.
then also, she, you and I, we've sat down and we've exchanged articles before, and there are articles that have been proven that the same geographical landmass, the sediment, the rock, the earth, the mineral, etc., that we find here on these shores of North America is identical to what you find on the continent of Africa,
Hmm.
and also likewise in South America, Central America, etc. So what
Correct.
that lets us know is that the landmass not only was closer, but at one point in time, as you mentioned too, before we had the Atlantic Ocean, it was a river.
Hmm.
It was a river. It was a lot closer than what it used to be.
Correct.
Great point. Um, I want to not shift it, but let's go to
Yeah,
another
yeah,
article right
yeah.
now.
Go ahead.
Before we go on to that, because I'm glad you brought up the continent of Africa, and one book in particular that I've read in the past while I was in college, and even recently I read it again a few years ago was the book on Joseph Sinke, who was supposed to be from Sierra Leone,
Okay.
outside, etc. But
Mm-hmm.
but the book is pretty is decent, really good book, right?
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that stood out to me in the movie, it's a he's a Nigerian. I want to say he's a Nigerian British um, actor. His name
Okay.
is Doc Adoti, right? And in there, he played somewhat of the rebellious Asiatic. He was, pretty much just really defiant, really upset. And it was one portion in the movie where they're identifying and recapping the quote unquote slave ship. And in it, what you'll find, if you ever get a chance to look at the film, you'll find that there is what is perceived as a Moor.
Mm-hmm.
Also, he's being a navigator. You also find this Spaniard who's with him, and then you also find this Catholic priest. And there are three things happening at this time. The
Mm-hmm.
first thing that's happening is that the Moor or the Moorish brother, he's assisting with like the transliteration portion with the Spaniard to a degree, but likewise they're renaming these people. And with the actor Razak Adoti, who's Nigerian, he gets on the ship, and one thing that I noticed, they first of all they Christianized him, and then they renamed him. And as opposed to just giving him a name, like his name being, let's say his name, I think his name was Bernard or Bernardo, which is Bernard in Spanish, right?
Mm-hmm.
They said, "Oh, his name is Negro Bernardo." That's what they put on there. They Negro Bernardo, and then they wrote down Negro Bernardo. So they put the term Negro on top of the name, the reclassification of the name of the person. And I always found that interesting. I just wanted to share that with the viewers. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it's another part that I wanted to go get into, and
Mm-hmm.
that is this other article that I found, and the article is specifically on the historical language of the word Negro, colored, black, and African American, which I found interesting because when you look at it, this individual, and Chi, can you see it? I think you
Mm-hmm.
can. All right, cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's the audience might have
Oh,
trouble
just
seeing
double
it,
click
but
it. Let me see.
you can
Um,
see the title of it.
all right, praise the Lord. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. Let's see, maximize it.
Yeah,
There,
that's a little better.
there we go. We off the screen. Praise the Lord. Islam Moors, Islam Shigas, Lomax Bey, Sheikh Haru Renisia, my apologies. Brother Dede Bey from Peoria, Islam, and Islam Brother William Bolton Bey. We thank you all for tuning in and for those who are tuning in. So it's interesting, right? Because this is called a digital anthology. It's actually from a Asiatic from India. And
Okay.
it seems as though he's a Sikh. His name is Amardeep Singh. And if you know
Hmm.
anything about the name Singh, see the thing is, on this station, on this platform, we teach in regards to race and nationality, and it's a profound lesson. At one point that I heard this tape that had Brother H, Brother Harmon Anderson ill on it, and he said that you can learn a lot about a person's nationality based on their surname. He
Yeah,
says
okay.
when I see the name Tom Sang will be Chinese. If I see a person with the name O'Hara, O'Hara is Irish, and the same thing with the name Anderson being English. So when you look at this guy Amardeep Singh, he is a Sikh, but likewise, he may be from India, Bangladesh, etc. But
Mm-hmm.
this is interesting. It says, and I'm going to do some paraphrasing, but I'm also going to put it in the language that he put it. It says, a note on the historical language, Negro, colored, black, and so-called African American, right? It says, an explainer regarding the language policies for this site by the site editor. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just want to point some points out. So he was trying to point out, he was trying to honor Asiatic poets. But when you look at this article, well, let's get into it. It says it seems important to faithfully reflect the language of poets and writers included on this site who describe used to describe themselves. he talks about the word negro being used in certain titles, specifically with like Alain Locke, and then also the so-called New Negro interpretation. Then you also had the UNIA, which is the forerunner private, excuse me, not private, but Brother Marcus Mosiah Aurelius Garvey's
Uh-huh.
newspaper, which is also known as the so-called Negro World. But then
Mm-hmm.
he also says this. He says, many of our students have found the historical usage of the word Negro confusing. And at times they have hesitated to say words like Negro or colored aloud, even in historical context wherein they might be offensive. While there is no harm in being cautious, having a clear sense of the history of the language usage could should assuage fears that the historical terms used in the context are offensive to say aloud. So let's go down. It says colored versus Negro versus African American, right? It says historically there have been many terms used to describe people of so-called African descent in North America.
Mm-hmm.
In the late 19th and 20th centuries, roughly around 1850 and 1960. Now we got to go to the prophet. Now, if you look at the prophet teaches us when you're dealing with the construct of the so-called Negro, his history begins at the close of the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
This is putting us in that timeline because you
Mm-hmm.
have people or our people who are coming out of physical slavery, but have also been subjected to mental slavery, and they are suffering from an identity crisis even to this day. It says the two words that were commonly used were colored and Negro. Negro, in particular, was widely used by so-called African American people themselves, and it was considered a term of respect when used by others, which we know is not true. Now, one individual in particular, W.E.B. Du Bois, made a specific case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, in previous episodes, if you ever go back, we did a segment on W.E.B. Du Bois, and one thing you'll find out about him is he is the father of so-called, I say, Negro sociology, meaning that when you're dealing with the idea and the construct of um, him pushing or promoting Eurocentric values, Du Bois, he himself, he was all for it. He actually benefited and profited heavily and greatly off of pushing European psychology, not only on our people, but also orienting those who may or may not be aware of it outside of America of
Mm-hmm.
those specific terms. He introduced those terms to them because Du Bois himself, he actually studied in France and he lived abroad as well. But
Mm-hmm.
it says much better or more logical than the term African or colored or any other various hyphenated combinations. So he was against the whole concept of the so-called hyphenated American. For example, Irish American, Italian American, Moorish American, etc. Du Bois and those who ran in his circle, they were against this. And they also, in the same vein, were pushing the word colored because there's an organization, which is also known as NAACP. They still use the term colored. However, they themselves, anybody you ask over there, they're not going to openly say, "Oh, I want to be known as a colored person," but
Uh-huh.
their organization says that, right?
Right.
But when you go further down, let's go down, and this again goes down and parallels off with the prophet. It says the term Negro was adopted from the Latin and has been used for primitive times to describe the so-called black peoples of Africa as they all have been, or has they been treated, or quite properly as a common noun, which is not true because when you look at that, the term black itself is an adjective. It's not a noun. It says
Mm-hmm.
it's possible to get writers in Europe and America, etc., to treat it as a proper noun. It's impossible because people in Europe, Africa, and Asia at that time, they realized that the term black or the word Negro or even the word color for that matter is not a proper noun. It's never, it wasn't a proper noun then, and it was not accepted as that at that time too. It
Uh-huh.
says they will never do it because the term is not definitive of race affinities and unities, but physical peculiarities of race of which the color is visible. And I didn't use the word color. This is what it says right here. I'm going to say shade, in which the shade is visible and in a variable index. So, all in all, what it's saying is that during the time of Du Bois, during the time of these individuals like Thomas C. Fortune, etc., these individuals we call high knockers, they were trying to create or trying to shape this word, these words and terminologies as something as being truthful.
Mm-hmm.
But the public wasn't going for it. The public knew and understood at that time that the words Negro, Black, and Colored were not only offensive, but those terms were derogatory and they weren't proper now, and it wasn't used. It wasn't in proper footing to actually identify a person based on their complexion off of something that isn't a proper noun. And that's
Right.
I don't know what they would, what the article was saying.
And Sheik, that goes back to right what which I don't know if you've ever had any of these conversations with your grandmother.
She used to call people colored, and
Uh-huh.
I used to look at my grandmother like, what's that all about?
But also, right, my grandparents, specifically my grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
used to tell. Well, I was young, and he used to tell my aunts and uncles, and even my mother, that we were Indian.
That too, and she said that as well. Yeah,
And I'm like, so for lack of, I don't know what was misconstrued, or what terminologies that they had, but when you start looking at like names, like last names, right?
right.
People, Europeans couldn't enunciate um our languages anyhow. But
So,
not only that, for example, when you go somewhere, and I know when I go and I feel and I'm comfortable, and I get to talking fast, the Baltimore accent will
no,
come out.
no,
Right. And when you look at that, you know, people can tell, oh, you from Baltimore? I could tell, or if they've been to Baltimore. And uh, some people who haven't been, they know that it's something different. Just like we can tell a difference of people who come from New York or Boston.
Philly,
So
right? Philly, yeah,
that's just like the enunciation of names, so to speak, right?
that's right.
Um, and a lot of times when people would enunciate a name, they would misspell the name or spell it differently, So
Sure.
just to bring that point out too, uh, that when you start looking at some of these last names and things of this nature, are they really from Europe?
No, I don't.
Right,
I'm gonna say it
right,
like this. I don't think so. I
right.
don't think so.
I don't think so either.
And I think some of the names it's coming out actually, Sheik, that some of
Mhm.
those names were adopted by Europeans. Europeans adopted many of our
Right.
surnames, like you mentioned earlier in regards to Walter Ashby Plecker. My
Hmm.
family in particular, my grandmother, her grandmother's family, their surname ended up on that list. Their surname is Tate,
Hmm.
specifically from a county in Virginia, which is known as King George County. And they ended up on there, and they were pretty much stated, hey, these people can't identify with their specific group, which is Panamonkey. They weren't allowed to.
Hmm.
And as a result of that, when you look at even census records and things of that nature, they were identified as mulattoes, and some of them were
Hmm.
identified. And then they went on to call themselves colored because that
Hmm.
was the language they were using in Virginia, as well as Maryland and other places as well. Yeah, so
Praise
that's
Allah.
it's
So
absolutely
now we see that this is not this subject is not for it's not it can't just be because I read um Ivan Van Sertima's book,
that's right.
or several of his books, or because I read Sheikh Anta Diop books,
All right,
or I've watched John Henry Clark videos.
videos. Yeah,
That makes you an expert on what it is that we're talking about.
that's right.
You really have to sit down and understand the context, and put in, because like the dates that you were utilizing, right? We know that the Prophet Noble Ali was born in the state of North Carolina, 1886.
That's right.
So some of the court cases we were reading, or the head notes of the court cases, 1826, 1802, which is quite a bit of time before 1886. You see? And we know also and understand 1863, January 1st, is when the slaves were freed. In
That's
this
right.
last court case, 1853, 10 years is a lot a lot can happen in 10 years.
Islam.
But also, we can go back to the first census of the United States, 1790,
90. That's
the
right.
first Naturalization Act of 1790,
That's right.
and also we can look at the Negro Act of South Carolina, 1790,
That's right.
which is a pivotal year for actions that were being taken to place people in such race categories, so to speak. You
Islam.
see what I'm saying?
I
So
understand. That's right.
this is not a subject where it's not for arguing. It's really about really sitting down, having an affinity for actually doing research and having intelligent, meaningful discussion.
That's right.
And that's I I mean, at least from what I see, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, when he said he left his footprints clearly cut, his footprints are why it is we're thinking the way that we're thinking,
That's right.
and why we've been able to find some of the information that we have found. Yeah. So yeah. Just to put that out there too.
No, that was a great point. And for those who are in the chat or viewing, do you have any questions or comments for us before we continue? We have a few more sources, and we want to keep it. We want to wrap things up. So, the next document that I would like to pull up, right, and it's actually going to be right here. And I'm pretty sure, I'm more than sure you're familiar with the sheet because you introduced me to it when I first came in. The term in the book is "Nation Knows No Color Line."
Oh yeah. J.A. Rogers.
Man.
Some people say J.A. Rogers.
Right.
Right.
Right. So we said we're going to focus on the word more and Moorish, right? So it was mentioned earlier in regards to race. Now, when we're dealing with race and nationality, those are two different concepts. So we're not trying to fuse the two. Mm-hmm. But it's one thing that I wanted to point out from J. Rogers' book. Mm-hmm. It kind of goes into that whole idea of Western paradigm, also known as European psychology. Uh-huh. So he says this on page 72, A Nation Knows No Color Line. He says more, and in parentheses he says it's the race, and I'm going to make this larger so everyone can see it. Give me 1 second. All right, here we go. It says, and I'm going to clear out the terms just a little briefly, just a little. It says more.
What page is this on, my man?
Oh, that's on page 72. So that's page 72, A Nation Knows No Color Line.
All right.
It says more, the race as it occurs in European heraldry, means
heraldry.
Right.
Yeah, that's the history
so
of.
So when you look up the word herald, the history of names, right? And it also deals with
and like coats of arms, bloodlines.
Mm-hmm. That's right, insignia. But guess what else? Recording genealogies.
Oh, okay, man, that's bad. Yeah, I like that. Okay.
Yeah, recording genealogies. So the word, according to the European paradigm, that's what it says bury. So Moor's head, meaning in the coats of her arms, like you mentioned, says bury term for a so-called black or a so-called Negro man. And these are footnotes that he's putting, that J.A. Rogers is putting there. So he has numbers. He numbers it 20, so on and so forth, for you to look at the footnotes of those who he's pulling from. It says, Abbott says Moor's head, the so-called head of a Negro. Edmondson similarly says, and this definition is etymologically correct. The Greek was said as to use the word moros to mean the word black or dark, and the Romans use it and to mean the word Negro as well. It says woolly hair like a Moor's, saying Martel, to Claudian, the Moors, common Ethiopians, and the Grecians, the word Negro, were all one and the same. Now this is again coming from the European paradigm, right? Mm-hmm. It says he speaks of the Moors who dwell beside the water of Gir, most famous of the rivers of Ethiopia, also known as Abyssinia, that overflows its banks as if it had been another Nile. It says the word Gir referred to here is Niger or Niger or Niger. It says Sir William Smith says Moors were known in Alexandrian dialect as being quote unquote so-called blacks, and that the Moors must not be considered as a different race from the Numidians. It says Arturdia says to the Greeks, Romans, and Gauls, the Moors were known as being so-called blacks. It says the word Mauritania, inhabited by so-called black populations, was later
Mm-hmm.
known as Negrita, which is actually mentioned in the Resurrection book as well.
Mm-hmm.
It says, or so-called Negro land. Moor, therefore, was equivalent to Negro. Now, these are all Europeans that are saying this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It says the word Moor or Moor, M-O-R-E, signifies a primitive so-called black population. Since, therefore, the Romans invaded Britain, France, Belgium, and Germany and other parts of Europe, they undoubtedly took the word Moor. So these Romans invaded Britain, France, Belgium, and Germany, and other parts of Europe. They undoubtedly took the word Moor as meaning the so-called term black people. It says, in fact, so common was the word Moor for so-called Negroes that it's astonishing to find some writers calling Moors a so-called white race. Now, when you look at the word Moor in its true sense, right,
Mm-hmm.
it's a Semitic word. And when you're dealing with the Semitic language is much older than the English language. It's much older than the European languages, British, French, German, etc., etc. If you look at the two, and I'm going to use just two examples. You have the Phoenicians, who had the word Mordium, which means Westerner, and you also have the Hebrew word, which is Mahrur, which means dark in complexion or dark due to the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at those words, the word Morium, which means Westerner, or those who live the furthest west, or dark complexion, they're talking about the specific uh, complexion and makeup of a person. The word Moor or Moorish does not mean black. So I wanted to put that out. And
You know
also,
what? You
go
know
ahead.
where they got that from though? When they
What's
when they in that
the book?
documentary,
Yeah, yeah.
they
Go ahead.
got it from Stanley Lane Pools.
And Lane Pools, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
and the thing is a sardine is when it's in the sea, it's not a sardine.
That's right.
It's just a small fish.
All
It's
fish.
not a sardine until they put it inside the can. And
That's
that's
right.
the same thing what happened. You know, Stanley Lane Poole was just doing his best of his scholarship of writing to try to explain his point of view
That's right.
of what it is, and people read that and then they try to take it and they run with it.
That's
So
right.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and then yeah,
And a
go ahead.
lot of people, man, they dislike J.A. Rogers, man. You know
Yeah,
why?
they try to
Because he
yeah,
ain't have a degree.
and no degree. That's right.
he did
That's right.
he did this research. All he compiled. He spent time in the library. I mean, whoever told him, man, he did his thing on whoever told him how to research.
That's right.
Oh man, and he's a good source to like trace back. And some people might think it's nerdy or
Ah, it's
but
research, Mo. It's
yeah, it's just
research.
it's I mean, and it's something that we kind of like, like I fell into doing research. I didn't know I was good at it until I read a few things, and then like it's like paperwork or a book, and then I'm like, man, and I'm like an investigator. Like
Islam.
I like to figure. I don't know. I just like to figure out stuff because
Right.
sometimes when I read stuff, I'm like, that just don't make
Makes
a
sense.
whole lot of sense. And let me
Right.
dig a little deeper, but and you grow as as a researcher, you become better at it the more that you do it and the things that you see and other actual researchers, professional researchers that you meet, you gain different skills and stuff like that. So yeah.
Right. Praise a lot. All right. So on to the next one. So this document right here with this image, it actually comes from a record that I actually got when I was in college and undergrad. And the book is called. Let me go back real quick. The book is called. It's not me calling, but the book is called "So-Called White and So-Called Black," and it's images of Africa and so-called black populations in Western popular culture. It actually was created by a Dutch author by the name of Jan Navarre Peterse. And in it, when you look at this, I'm going to go to the page right now. In it, it says the continents personified in the frontispiece of the 18th century English book explaining European commerce, arts, and obtained through the gold Afrique and the sons of the eunuchs, as well as Asia, while America sits at the sea and brings the wealth of minds to various things. There was one thing in particular in the intro that I found interesting when I read it a while ago, and it actually personifies this image right here. It says the phrase so-called white on so-called black refers to the whole spectrum of relations in the Western interests were dominant. It says the so-called transatlantic slave trade, masters relationships on plantations in America, colonialism, post-colonialism era, majority-minority relations in Western world. In each of these situations, Europeans constructed images of Africa and I'm going to paraphrase, Asiatics on the basis of selective perception, expedience, secondhand information mingled with reconstructed biblical notations and medieval folklore, along with popular or so-called, quote unquote, and this is their quotes, scientific ideas that were current at that time. It says the book concentrates solely on images rather than solely on ideas or discourse. It gives a different focus from that of other studies. It says, on the other hand, images are situated in the midst of historical processes and ideas of discourse. On the other hand, they tend, by the visual character, to be bold, telegraphic invocations. So when you're talking about telegraphic invocation, perception perception is everything. If I can give you an image or give you a depiction of a person or individual, like this one right
Mhm.
here, that I'm about to pull up, most people will look at this image right here and it's in the same record, and they'll think that you have a European woman with a so-called servant. But in this chapter, which is actually titled Servant, it says sometimes or more. And on page 125, it says, and let me make it a little larger, it says, in the 16th century, Portugal and Spain, and in Naples and Venice, the Moor as a servant was a familiar figure. The term Moor, by the way, was long time applied to both Arabs and persons of African descent in Europe. Keep going.
Yeah, keep
All
going.
right. In England in the 16th century, the term blackamoor was introduced as an element of differentiation, but Moor continued to be used for, and I'm going to use the word Asiatics. At first seen in ports among sailors and then among noble and wealthy families in Northern Europe, who were in turn copying the luxuries of the Mediterranean Europe. The so-called black servant reoccurred as a status symbol, often depicted in portraits at the side of some prominent gentleman or especially a lady. The presence of the servant suggests wealth and luxury, and sometimes indicated the colonial connections of the persons portrayed. In the 18th century, the Moorish costume gave way to European dress or livery, and in the 19th and 20th centuries, and this is your word, Sheik, the Oriental outfit returned, probably as a byproduct of the revival of Orientalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
Going down, it says by the 17th century, the Moorish servant had always become a stylistic feature, a decorative element recognized in such literature and art from a period of time, and a feature added to provide, in contrast, of the pictorial varieties, adding extra luster for the same reasons a scene will be enriched with domestic animals. And then on the following page, I'm not going to go into it, but it talks about the fact that it's one particular picture on the second part where it shows a commander of Saint Eutracia and Saba, which was painted in 1720, and the term is used as a page, but it says apparently this person was dressed up as a Moor or a Turk with a turban.
Man.
Stop there.
Yeah, so you see how they are using terminologies interchangeably,
That's right.
which confuses people because you know when people hear about a Turk, they automatically look at the people who live in Turkey now,
You're right.
as opposed, what all this everything that we've presented and some of the things that I've read, and the prophet is expressing to us that we had a global culture,
That's right.
that our culture was on what we now call the seven continents. We had a global culture. We ruled the world. And that's not to say that other people are beneath us or
No,
anything
they
like
ain't
that.
belittling.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not to make that point. You understand? Because as far as I'm concerned, if you're a good person, I can work with you.
That's
Your
right.
character is intact. I can work with you. You know, but if your character is not intact, if you look like me or don't, then now we got some other discussions that we may have to have. Um, so at the end of the day, this is about us knowing who we are, being proud of who we are, and doing what it is that we need to do in order to be able to disseminate this kind of information for our people to be proud of themselves and know that our history does not start with the close of the Civil War. It goes back much further than that.
That's right.
That we are more than just slaves or niggers, and here in Baltimore, you know,
On those dummies.
calling themselves dummies now. So
In
we're
our
more,
history.
we're more than that.
Yeah,
We
that's right.
we don't
And
have to just
sometimes,
resort to
go
being
ahead.
basketball and baseball and football players.
That's right.
Yeah, we were blacksmiths. We were carpenters, plumbers. You name it. We
That's right.
we were that. So
Yeah.
that's what this is all.
Right.
This is
It's,
helping me see.
yeah. Like many of the things that we see in the modern day that we think are new innovations, our foremothers and forefathers, they already had them. For example, street lights,
Hmm.
running water. And we're not just talking about in Spain. We're talking about here in the what you call the United States of America. This landmass right here,
Uh,
it already existed at that time, And for whatever reason, you see people, and I pay it no mind, but I see, people on social media with laughing emojis, etc. When people present certain information, that
mhm,
just shows me, and maybe, hopefully it shows those who are presenting, information, historical facts that some people are feeling uncomfortable because some layers of this onion are being peeled off.
yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
a long time we've been, taught the misconception that all of us were brought over here, like you stated, on slave ships from Africa, etc. But a simple conversation, or just going back in the mind of those conversations with your grandparents or whoever the case may be, I'm pretty sure, more than sure, they know a little bit more in regards to history than the
Hmm.
person that's writing these textbooks and things of that nature, orienting or reorienting our minds
Hmm.
to think contrary.
And
Um,
and let me say this too, right? We're
so,
not we're not taking away. Are you familiar with the term the Great Ma'afa?
yes, and we're not taking that away. Yeah,
Yeah,
not at all, not at all,
not
not at
trying to
all.
say that
Yeah,
it happened, but it
it
didn't
happened. Right.
happen with 20 million, 2 million people.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
the
all we're
Great
saying. Right.
Ma'afa.
It happened
There were people who came over on the I mean, in the Great Ma'afa, but
for sure.
which is we're talking about, those who died in the slave trade
That's right.
in the voyages that did come from that part of the world.
That's right.
But what we're saying is it wasn't as many as they try to make it seem. It wasn't 2 million people who came from over there.
That's right.
What we're saying is a lot of us were already here, and some of our people were brought over here.
That's right.
Is what we're saying. Yeah,
Some caught, some bought.
yeah, that's right.
That's right. So, Chick, you got anything else you want to add to it?
Oh man, I mean, I think this is tonight's show hopefully put some things into context for certain for certain individuals who
Yeah,
will come back and watch. But we're not black, man.
not at
We're
all.
not. Yeah, we you can use it if you choose to identify yourself as such, but we're not going to
We're
use it.
not gonna. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not going
and we
for
going
it for myself, for my family.
yeah, we encourage people to watch what they're saying, when they're filling out documents and various other things, because let the truth be told, there's a spirit that comes with the word.
Man, you took the words out of my mouth because you are a words carry spirit.
Yeah, it's a spirit that comes with the. You know how. when you was younger and you didn't do something your mother told you to do,
Yeah.
and she, and she come in that bad boy
Right.
and
Yeah.
she use a couple words or even
That's
give
right.
you a look, and it's a certain spirit behind it.
Bringing up real
And
quick.
you already know I gotta straighten up. I gotta do what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
So, that's if you will, if that's a good example for somebody, um, that the spirit of the word is not a it's not a good spirit behind
No,
that word.
it
Yeah.
isn't.
The
And
energy
go ahead.
the energy behind it is not good at all.
Yeah, and then you hear people often say, oh, the European, constructed the word to make it seem negative. No, it was already the word that they were using. You can't take something that was made negative and turn it into a positive,
Hmm.
no matter how much you try. And then likewise, when you look at, most people and I'm not getting down on anyone, but if you identify or, labeling yourself as black or even African American for that matter, let's say black. We're gonna go black because everybody's, so-called black American. That's what they try to identify as. They always want to point you back to Africa. Well,
Hmm.
point us back to Africa. Okay, then what's your nationality? You got to have a nationality. Even if you come from the continent of Africa, or even if you're from here, these shores, you have to have a nationality. That's the point that we're raising. And then also you have to, learn the true essence of your race, which is not black. And likewise, the European is not white. So I just want to make that point up as well. European
Yeah,
is
for sure.
white.
Yeah, they're not white.
And
We're
they
not
know
black.
this. Like if you leave the country, they know this. Like they identify based off of their nationality. They'll
Hmm.
tell you quick, I'm Irish, I'm English,
Hmm.
I'm Scottish, etc. And then you see it with their holidays as well and their customs. So, for those individuals who it may seem like a difficult concept or something to give up, try just do your investigative research and just look at some of the information that we presented on this segment and in previous segments, and hopefully, it provides you a little clarity as to why we don't, first of all, identify ourselves as black, and our race is in fact Asiatic, and then likewise our nationality is Moorish American. And the shade of my skin, as well as the Sheiks, is olive.
Yeah, that's right.
It's olive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that being said, we're going to conclude this segment. Just giving everybody a little insight. We have some inclement weather coming down the pipeline on the East Coast. So we are bracing for snow for Sunday.
Hmm.
So I did talk to my grand Sheets, and she said we're going to be doing Sunday school virtually. However, tomorrow from 8 to 10, no snow here in Baltimore, the Baltimore metropolitan area. We welcome everyone to come out to the Temple number 13, which is located at 1055 Northern Avenue.
Hmm.
Hours at from 8 to 10. That's Friday, the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Likewise, brothers and sisters who may or may not be Muslims, you're more than welcome to come out and worship and give praises to the God of your understanding as well. So that's from 8 to 10. And our meeting is open and closed under the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. You also have our sister temples, which is 13-1 on Bel Air Road. I don't know if Sheikah's Lomax Bay is still on the chat, but if she would like, you can put your address and your meeting time as well in the chat. We also have Temple 13-2, which is on the west side under the leadership of Grand Sheik Eric Thompson Bay. And their meeting hours at the same time, 8 to 10. That's on the west side of Baltimore. And then Temple number 13 is on the east side of Baltimore, which is 1055 North Milton Avenue. And then there are other respective temples as well. We have Peoria, Illinois, as Brother Day Bay stated earlier. We also have Atlanta, Georgia, that's Temple number 27 under the leadership of Grand Sheik Charles Brownell. We also have Temple number 39 under the leadership of Grand Sheik Hope Mayadale in Raleigh, North Carolina. We also have 11-1 in Philadelphia. And we also have two respective temples, one in Albany and one in Troy, New York, Temple 19, I believe. Did I leave anything out, Shoot?
Uh, just the West Side Temple is located at 2900
Oh, yeah,
Pressman.
I mentioned. Yeah, yes, sir. 2900 Pressman Street. That's absolutely right. So, yeah, once again, West Side Temple, 2900 Pressman Street. So with that being said, as I stated before, We will be in person tomorrow. We'll be virtually, um, and also follow the temple's page too. The temple's
Yeah.
page on Facebook is Moorish Science Temple of America, Temple number 13, and also our website is www.moorishsciencetemple.org. And Grand Sheikah's Lomax Bay, she just put in the chat, Temple number 13-1 is 3222 Bel Air Road. Meeting hours are Friday 8 to 10, Sunday 5 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Islam. Islam is
Praise Allah.
praise Allah.
And I know we're feeding the homeless Saturday, providing that it doesn't snow.
Praise Allah.
Yeah. So um, we meet up at 1055 Milton Avenue around I say 11:30, and then
Yes.
a.m. at 10:55, and then we I believe this time we're going throughout the city,
Yes, we are.
uh, where we go find pockets of where we believe or actually know where
People in
there are
need,
pockets are actual families that are homeless,
children,
children and everything. Yeah.
everybody. So we,
So
it's
we
a
go there and we do our due diligence. We're trying to help them.
that's right.
Uh, and then sometimes we say stationary, where in a specific area where we actually also feed the homeless or whatever. So
That's right.
if you would like to volunteer, join us, or you can go to the temple's web page, and you can send us information if you would like to make a donation or whatever to feed the homeless. Also, we do workshops.
That's right.
Um, we had a candle making workshop. We had a financial literacy workshop. We had a leadership workshop,
And we
and
have others coming up.
we had yeah. Then we had a vision board
Board.
workshop. Actually, there's a vision board workshop coming up. I believe it's on the 30th.
Yes.
Hosted by my wife, Sheikah's Valans Bay. Um, I think I don't know if it's full yet. I believe it is, but you can reach out on our website to see if there's still other slots. And we just doing what we can do to uplift all humanity.
That's right.
Yeah,
Doing
praise
our
God.
part, man. Let's doing our part.
Yep,
That's right. So, if there's nothing else, if no one has any comments in the chat, we're going to conclude this segment with the Moorish American prayer.
Islam,
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 Islam.
Islam.
Allah, the Father of the universe,
Allah, the Father of the universe,
the Father of love,
the Father of love,
truth,
truth,
peace,
peace,
freedom,
freedom,
and justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector,
Allah is my protector,
my guide,
my guide,
and my salvation
and my salvation
by night
by night
and by day
and by day
through his holy prophet,
through his holy prophet,
Drew Ali.
through Ali.
Amen.
Amen.
Islam.
Islam.
Praise Allah.